We interrupt this program to bring you a special news bulletin.
Interrupt this broadcast to bring you this important bulletin from the United Press. Bring you this important bulletin from the United Press.
This is not a test. Every Tuesday, the Journey into Comics Network will bring you The Poor Rapport, your one-stop podcast shop for everything news and topics of personal interest. I am your host, Andrew Poor, and you can hear me every Tuesday.
The following is a Journey into Comics Network production.
Ladies and gentlemen, you're listening to Journey into Comics, the podcast about everything nerd, with your hosts, Nate Phillips and Brandon Stone.
We've come a long way from the Prime Minister's exploding cake. Or have we?
What's up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome to another episode of Journey into Comics. It's episode 171. I am your host, Nate, and I want to first and foremost say Merry Christmas. I hope you're having a great holiday. Today, joining me, as always, the Groot to my Rocket Raccoon. How you doing, Brando?
Groot.
Yeah, Brando's a little under the weather today, folks. So if you hear sniffles or coughies, he apologizes in advance. We're really appreciative that he's still coming into the office today to put something down. But we've all been there. We know what it's like. So, Brando, how is it going, buddy, other than being sick?
Well, I'm doing better than yesterday and the day before. I was very feverish, very just falling asleep about every 5 minutes.
I feel asleep.
I did feel asleep, and I feel asleep a lot, and to the point of where, like, yesterday, laid down to take a nap after we got back from my doctor appointment, which ironically had nothing to do with me being sick, but I digress. Get back and lay down. She wakes me up when he gets up, which thankfully, well, not thankfully, was like only like 20 minutes to a half hour, and I got very upset and very like, what? I didn't even. Oh, I just want to just go away.
And then that 1 hour nap.
Well, like he wanted to come in and see me, so I had to be power dad, and power through it. And then he like was in the bed and then decided to climb on me. My entire body and joints were like a whole like bucket of no. Like it just nothing.
A bucket of no.
Whole bucket of no. Then there was just like even just moving my hand. I mean, I felt so much older than what I am, and it had to have been a touch of the flu. Thankfully, I have not, evacuated my stomach or bowels or anything or any combination of their of sort. I have come close.
Lovely picture you've painted our audience.
Yeah. Hey, well, that's what I'm here for.
Great.
But last few days I've been very miserable. Today I woke up feeling awesome, other than I have a cough, I have stuff, my sinuses aren't as bad, but I do have stuff like down in my lungs, and so I have a whole thing of cough drops over here. We're going to power through this show because it's a very special episode for us. I mean, it's our first episode that's ever landed on Christmas Day, so I definitely want to be here for that. I was not about to let you go alone for this. And, of course, we have stuff to talk about, follow-up from the Star Wars awesome episode that we did for episode 170. I feel like it's one of our better episodes in a long time. I'm very, very proud of the episode, especially since it took me 3.5 hours to edit that episode.
Man, we had some technical difficulties at your house. It was just a weird one in regards to the podcast, how things happened. I cannot believe I forgot to bring a cable. And since we're here mentioning on the podcast, somewhere on your floor is my GoPro cable. It's definitely at your place somewhere. You'll find it later.
Yeah, I'll have to hunt for it, and while I got you on the call here before we go home today, and try to is this it? Is this one? Is this it?
You have so many I was actually worried to tell you that a cable of mine was missing in your room because of the amount of cables that are in your room.
Is this it? Is it short?
It's exactly that. I can see it right there. It says GoPro.
Wow. It's awesome because I didn't know what this was.
First try. That's exactly my cable, bro.
Awesome.
Great news. Woo!
But yeah, we had to issue with a cable to a point where we actually started and went for about 20 minutes, and it was causing so much of a row. in our audio that we just stopped and started again, and there were still some issues with it. Hopefully, you guys will never, ever know. Hopefully, I didn't miss any. I haven't gone back and listened to the whole episode because I pretty much had to listen to the entire thing again and stop and edit and then go and then go and then stop, then edit, then go. So on last week's episode, we had podcast review host right here on the Journey into Comics Network, Dick Tyner, and our good friend Tyler McLaughlin, who has been on Podcastrophe, Game Addicts, and now Journey into Comics.
God,
he bought his own mic, dude. He bought his own mic and cable.
Yes, he killed it, bro.
And oh yeah, so what we had was like the cable or the microphone. I don't know if it was both because, dude, like after I gave him the new cable, it would still do it. So I think it might be the microphone.
Oh no!
I hope not, but it wasn't doing it on. It wasn't doing it on mine, if you remember.
Yeah, and have you had problems on Game Addicts with it doing it?
Not on Game Addicts, but on Butt Stuff we did. Because I had to go through on theirs and edit theirs as well.
Weird.
At least over there, it wasn't nearly as bad. Because, Nate, it did the little mid-sentence for Tyler. And he said, I nudged him. It was something about Star Wars. I can't remember. He's showing him. It might have been about spoiler, maybe some books or something.
Okay.
I think you know what I'm talking about, Nate.
Yes.
Hopefully nobody, if you know what I'm talking about, then you know what I'm talking about, and hopefully if you haven't seen the movie yet, you're like, what the hell is he talking about?
No idea. They have no clue.
Okay.
We're good.
So, and it was just, I couldn't do anything to it. I tried everything. And then I'm like, wait a minute. Let's go back. 2 minutes prior, he said, I nudged him. And then he went off into a tangent, and he came back and said, I nudged him again. You know, he said that again. But the difference is, the first time he said it, he spaced the words out longer. So I went over there, copied that, brought it down, brought it back over, muted when he said it before, had to shrink it down a little bit, move it back a little bit, and when you play it through, it's almost like you didn't miss a dang thing, and you'll never notice it.
Brando,
Unless
see,
you know
are
what I'm
truly
talking
a
about.
wizard.
Oh my gosh. I was like, I hope this works. I hope it works, because when I first put it there, it didn't work. Like
it's
still
podcasting woes, bro.
because it didn't really work out right. But that episode, I'm so proud of it because hopefully it's pretty smooth. The only funny thing is that Blaine was telling a story. Blaine as in Dick. I know him as Blaine because that's what he introduced to himself as at work. So, like, you know, everywhere, everybody else knows him at like in local town and music scene knows him as Dick, but he's Blaine to me.
Me too.
So he was telling a story about Avatar, going to see Avatar. And then he trailed off and stopped when the really loud noise happened. And because then you're like, Brando, there's something weird going on here. It's like whistling at me. And then we went on for another 2 minutes, but literally that next few minutes really didn't add a lot to the episode. It added more on to what the Avatar thing, which really wasn't the focus because it was more of a tangent, really. So what I did, it was right after he said that, I cut it off to where we come back, and it's so funny because the way that Blaine cuts his sentence off makes it look like I am like saying, enough of this tangent, we're moving on. And my voice sounds a little irritable because I'm irritated at the cable, I'm at the mic. I don't know what's going on. So if you guys listen to that, I'm not cutting him off. I even asked him, I'm like, did you have more to that story? He goes, no. I'm like, good, because it sounds like I just like a dick, no pun intended, come in and cut you off and just say, no, we're moving on here. No more Avatar talk. But, Nate, I received a hell of a compliment.
Sure.
On our Instagram. And I love interaction with our listeners and fans.
Yeah.
So I actually want to, like, since they replied and since they got back with us, and where was it? There was a comment.
It's on the most recent post.
Yeah, but it's not there now that I look at it. Oh, there it is. It is from the Covert Nerd Podcast on Instagram. And they said, great episode. Brando has so much passion and knowledge about the Star Wars universe. And that really hit me right here. Because
feels, man. Because
I do. I'll be honest with you. I probably have more passion about Star Wars than I do about any comic book, any comic book character or hero, villain, like Star Wars trumps that to me. And so, like, pretty much Star Wars is the only thing that I'm passionate about, other than, like, paranormal investigating, which I haven't done in a long time, that I don't have a podcast about.
Yeah.
So, I'm not saying I will, but there's always a chance that, maybe that, podcast racer will happen, or something. Podcast racer.
I see what you did there.
Episode 1.
That's great. I think you would just call it the Pod Racer, right?
Yeah, the pod racer. I don't know, dude. It would be really cool.
Or trackside for pod racing.
Because think about it. Even when there's not movies going on, even if you don't, maybe you do like, I don't know, weekly would be a little difficult, I think, for me.
Monthly would be easy.
Especially to do like a news roundup for what's been goings on and everything. And then every time they drop a film, it'd be really big,
We do have a Patreon where we can give exclusive content. Maybe we can have an exclusive Star Wars podcast exclusively on our Patreon.
Maybe I have an idea for that.
Okay, well, maybe we'll talk about it off air. Or maybe we can. I don't care. Whatever.
But
I
want to thank the Covert Nerd podcast for listening and for that comment, because I hope it does come off that I'm very passionate about Star Wars. A lot of fans are, but I really dug our episode on that. So if you guys haven't heard that yet, it's already pretty high up there with our plays, dude, for the last 30 days.
It's the second most downloaded in the past month, and it's the, I think, third most downloaded in the past 3 months.
That's awesome
for us. Yeah, it's tracking really nicely. Oh, it's actually second in the last 3 months. So that's really awesome, and I guess it's a testament to what we talked about. I think we covered the spread. There was so much there. I was really grateful to have seen it a second time and then to be able to speak on it, because I felt a lot more knowledgeable and like the things. Well, it was just like.
Oh, I'm sorry. My brain is like, when I hear sometimes and I hear you or anybody say something, my brain will say something, like not necessarily in response, but you're like, you said I was so excited to speak on it, so I heard in my head, I went, oh, yo, let me speak on this. Órale! Arriba la raza!
Awesome. Conan, I knew you were referencing that. That's great.
He just couldn't contain his excitement for Star Wars.
I was so excited about Star Wars, and like I said, it was great to see it a second time. I loved getting to watch your guys' reactions, to hear it for the first time. And seeing the movie with you was really cool.
I don't really react a whole lot to movies. If you noticed, I'm usually like I'm sucked in.
Yes.
Now Blaine, on the other hand, he's like miming. He's pantomiming stuff.
Yes, he is.
And he's jumping and he's reacting.
At one point, I thought he started to do Gangnam Style. I was like, "What are you doing in your seat?" I think he was trying to, and then it was, there's that whole scene that we won't spoiler. Which, by the way, for those of the people that listened to yesterday's Best of the Week, no spoilers in that. We made sure to not put any Star Wars a lot of Star Wars talk on the network last week. No spoilers there, folks. Just wanted to give everyone a heads up.
That's a great thing, because when I was thinking about the episode from 170, I did so now that we do the Best of the Week thing. I'm like, we need to have a segment that negates that, because that's the last thing that I want to do. Is obviously, if you're going to check out Journey into Comics, I didn't put spoilers in the description. Maybe I should have, but maybe I just sort of thought it was like, the episode's called The Last Jedi. It's coming out the Monday after the movie came out.
Obviously.
I'm like, if anybody listening to that episode says, I got spoiled, it's like, well, it's a 2-hour podcast talking about The Last Jedi. How are we going to do 2 hours of that? Anyway, I'm really happy and I'm really proud of you for being able to do that, because that is something that I had thought of and thought of with that episode in mind, which is why we talked about the Disney Fox stuff in our segment. Is that the one that you used for that?
Yeah, the Disney Fox stuff for our segment.
Right, because I said, let's do that first. Let's pan that out. Because, there's only so much to say on that anyway, and it's probably going to be about the length of like that we used for the clip anyway. And then we could just go full bore into the spoilers. And then it's like a little bit of a, even if you did come in and didn't know that this was going to be spoilers, we did give you a countdown. And then if you didn't shut it off, by the time one hit, you got spoiled on something big.
I jumped the gun a little bit. I was excited. I got a little too excited. I don't know. It was weird. It was one of those in-the-moment things. One thing I should also mention, we're talking about catching up and whatnot here. I had a little bit of I guess you'd call this a little bit of a tragedy happen in my family this week, as our 10-year-old computer tragically died. And that computer literally edited almost every Journey into Comics we've ever done that I've had anything to do with. Anything I've edited for the network was done almost exclusively on that all-in-one PC. So it was sad. Luckily, we got the hard drive out. Luckily, we've got some friends who have some cool techie shit that we can hook up to another computer, which we're using right now, Veronica's computer. She's so graciously letting us borrow, so I can imminently be editing things like the best of the week in this show and whatnot. So that happened, and that was sucky, and hopefully there's some cool stuff in the near future coming in that regard that will allow me to do this editing stuff a lot quicker. Because that's the goal, is to be able to do everything with ample speed. Mm-hmm. The one thing I will say about the all-in-one is sometimes she took a long time to edit those Audacity files down. You do a mix and render, and it should be only like 30 seconds, and it would be like 7 minutes and 45 seconds, you know.
You know, even on my PC, which is a lot newer than yours and has a good run, I think it would take sometimes, for the longer episodes, about 2 or 3 minutes. So,
yeah, see, and it was double or triple that sometimes.
Right, and see, for the Star Wars, we only had 4 tracks, 5 if you include that one track that I created just so I could paste the "I nudged him" line, and that way I could use that. But man, that was a long and grueling episode to edit. So proud of it. You know, hopefully we'll get you another PC and another something else to be able to edit on. Maybe something that's powerful enough to edit some video stuff as well.
Oh, that would be incredible.
Well, because I think you're in talks to possibly purchase one, and if I know him and what he likes to buy, he kind of likes to buy kind of top notch stuff.
All the bells and whistles.
He likes that kind of stuff. So I'm hoping that it should be more than enough to run Pinnacle. If I could find the stuff that I have, because my Pinnacle's a bit old, I need to update it.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking around tax time I'm going to update my Pinnacle. I actually need to update my PC altogether, which we've actually looked at, but time will tell if that's going to happen, because the ones that we're looking at are over $1,000 to be able to do what I wanted to do, because I want to do streaming stuff. Of course, we tried to do that a little bit a few episodes ago, and it's there, and it worked technically. The video and audio is a bit off, but I don't know if it was just a stream or if it was me downloading it, because I had to download it in a workaround way, and then recropping of an intro onto it, which that was just such a... I made that intro in like 5 seconds. So I'm like, I here, boom, boom, boom.
Done. Okay,
so
we're good.
What's funny is that, for our intro, it's a tribute to Adam West. And
it is.
We've left it, and I think we're just probably going to leave that for a good while, because I like it.
Me too.
And so... I had the sound effect, a little like, from like the old Batman series. And what's funny is that I went and I downloaded a video clip, but I had to mute it because it tried to play it twice. So, so then I had to match it up with the other audio file. It's actually not perfect. I don't know if you could tell, but
you know what?
It's there, and we're going to work out the kinks to be able to get a more live stream there for that way. It's a little bit more like, at least you can see our faces, and it was our very first attempt for that at all. So I think it went relatively well, all things considered.
That was 169 Home Gardening with Negan. Get that on our YouTube. Just in case people forgot that YouTube is a thing you can use to check us out. It's really nice, too, because all the episodes go up there. But, Brando, I want to throw a little tiny preamble of Marvel-y comic book news, just fast-tracking here before we get into kind of the meat and potatoes of a lot of what we're going to be doing today. Quickly, the creator of Thanos has left Marvel. Jim Starlin, it's under his own terms. So I don't really know what to say about this other than it's kind of crazy because it's like right before Thanos is going to officially be a full character on his big screen debut. And there's some falling out, which actually didn't have anything to do with Marvel itself. There was another editor that I guess he's just really unhappy with some of the choices this guy has made, and maybe running a story that's similar to something that Jim Shooter had been working on for a lot longer, and this guy maybe short-tracked a similar story for someone else, But I digress. That's a little bit of crazy news in the Marvel comic world. To move it over to the Marvel Cinematic Universe world... we've got Disney just bought Fox, part of Fox. We're going to get all these cool new characters, but we've got some wrap-ups going on the flip side of this because Vision and Scarlet Witch, that's Paul Bettany and Elizabeth Olsen, have wrapped filming Avengers 4. So whatever their role in the movie is at this point is done. They know where their fate is at the end of the MCU at this point. And even still, I guess they probably might not know their fate because crazy edits and alternate scenes being filmed and swerve scenes and stuff. It's bizarre how they do that. Now, the reason I kind of put that here was because Paul Bettany is also apparently in the Solo movie, the Han Solo movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, he said it's going to play more like a gangster film.
Kind of makes sense.
Yeah.
But with the character that Han Solo is, he's involved with a lot of gangsters and, shady guys, so.
Yeah, he is, and it's, I don't know. I'm excited to see the Solo movie and see what happens in all of that. Where exactly will this movie take place in the universe? It will forever change Machete Order, no matter how you slice it. I kind of love Machete Order. It's a fun workaround. At some point, though, I do think I want to try to attempt to watch them chronologically.
Well, there's always that way. I don't really watch the prequels unless I have to. I haven't watched them since before The Force Awakens, I want to say. And I think I started, I think that time I went chronological. I went with 1 and then worked all the way up to 6. But typically, I've always thought that, Machete Order works, but it's also, narratively, it doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah.
Well, because if you think of, Luke gets told by Vader that I'm your father. I'm Anakin Skywalker.
Mm-hmm.
And Luke is like, no, it's not true. And then Vader's like, search your feelings. He's like, no, bastard. That's actually Marty McFly, but you can actually interject him. Because Anakin is a bastard. He didn't have a father.
I see what you did there. That was great.
Anyway, It's like he knows, but he needs the validation. So in Return of the Jedi, he goes to Yoda, is like, is he? It's like, he tells me he could be deceiving me. Is he? And Yoda's like, yeah, I'm tired. Yeah, nope. And then he's like, Yoda, I must know. And Yoda's like, I'm getting ready to die, dude. You really want? Come on. Not the last thing I want to remember of my living days. So yeah, he tells him, and then it's like a truth that hits him a second time. Because there was the initial impact and the shock. Now that the shock is gone and Yoda confirms it, it's like he's got to deal with the ramifications. So whereas as a fan you could use it as like a flashback to get Vader's story, before that, the original trilogy is done in such a way where you don't need it at
Correct.
all. And if you're going along the lines of Lucas reaching out with the Force to get the background on his dad, that narratively wouldn't make sense until after the Yoda scene, or at least the Obi-Wan scene, or whatever. Maybe when he's traveling back. So, to each his own. However you want to watch the movies is however you want to watch the movies. I personally, it's just I just would rather leave the prequels alone because you don't need them in a sense. Yes, there's there's plenty of good stuff in those movies. The storytelling is not as powerful as the moments. I heard that today in regards to something completely different. It's like the storytelling was not very good, but there were some damn good moments. And really, if you ask me, I actually think the storytelling got better in episode 3 because they actually had to wrap everything up. They actually had to tell the story of Anakin's downfall. So from that point of view, from right there, like that would be the only one that is absolutely necessary to watch, because you see Anakin, who's has character development, but it's like slim and none for the movies. He has more character development in the Clone Wars cartoon than he does in any of them.
Yep.
So negate that if you're never going to watch the cartoon. Just take where he is in episode 3. Take where Palpatine is, and it's like narratively before all those, you don't even need him. So really, you could the machete order, if you will, but only really need episode 3, unless you like. Because even like Count Dooku, how much screen time does he have in episode 2? I mean, if people want to start like, with all the stuff that's been going around about this movie and about screen time, think about all the other Star Wars movies of the past and how imperfect those movies are. And like for example, the amount of screen time of Jango Fett, the amount of screen time of Dooku. We spend time with Obi-Wan Kenobi in a 1950s style diner.
Oh God, that scene on the Rishi Maze. Old friend Obi-Wan.
I mean, I'm trying not to laugh this episode because it's going to send me to a coughing fit. But literally, I get it, because I mean, Lucas loves that. That's him like putting a little bit of like sprinkle of what stuff I love, and into it. It doesn't kill the movie, but you sit there and you just kind of scratch your head at it. And so, I mean, there's that. But we tangented off into something. I'm not even sure where we went.
We were talking about Han Solo movie and just how it's a gangster movie. But, we are moving forward today. The title of this episode is Journey into Comics 171, episode Hate. And we're going to talk about it, Brando. This is the most divisive Star Wars movie. We really weren't in the thick of it, I think, when we recorded our episode. We were more talking about the actual movie and not all the stuff surrounding the movie. So
I'd already seen it. Before I even saw the movie, I saw people online complaining. And I was seeing like viewer reviews, and I agree, this is really divisive, and it's difficult for me to see everything because a lot of their things that they're nitpicking, it's nitpicking.
You're choosing to nitpick, and I think some people don't. How do I word this, Brando? It's like they were dissatisfied that the fan theory they came up with wasn't what Lucas went with. It wasn't Ray Palpatine. Lucasfilm. I was going to
say, like, George. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, no, don't give it back to George.
Did you hear that he loved it?
Oh, no, I didn't, but I'm actually not surprised.
Yeah, from everything, because he was critical of Force Awakens. I don't know if you remember that.
Yes, he was. He wasn't 100% thrilllled.
But apparently,
wasn't the movie he would have made.
Apparently, Rian Johnson shook his hand after the screening, and Lucas told him that he loved it. He thought it was great. And if you think about it, Star Wars fans are the most fickle sons of bitches. They're never satisfied.
Nobody hates Star Wars like Star Wars fans.
I know. I mean, and I said this before, like one of my most least, and here, okay, we're going to talk about Star Wars. We've been dancing around it. So let's just say, spoilers from here on in, guys. If you've been listening to the show, you still haven't seen this movie, want to be saved, we're going to talk about it. So 3, 2, 1, stop now. Okay, good. I gave you a bigger chance than we did last time. Okay, so this movie deviated from the path. This movie deviated from the typical trilogy path. And there are hints of Empire Strikes Back. There's also hints of Return of the Jedi.
Oh, yeah.
It's like 2 in 1. This movie's so freaking long. But I am not a huge fan, and I can't wait to my second viewing to see if I feel the same way still, of what I call the side quest. And that is Finn and Rose. going to Casino Planet. I didn't really like the feel of it, and then I didn't like the way that it just sort of like narratively they could have done the exact same thing, and had there have been, because they introduced a possible spy on the ship, and they could have had that whole thing without them leaving the ship, where the quote spy on the ship is the Resistance's codebreaker that they convinced to go with them and go over there. Instead of leaving the ship, going off into light speed somewhere else, coming all the way back, doing this whole process to get screwed over. That is my least favorite part of the film. It's not a terrible part of the film, because I actually don't believe anything in this movie is terrible. But that's the only part of it that was like, this narratively, from a script perspective, did not need to happen. It almost feels like a movie within a movie.
So I have a reason behind that thought. The reason they went to do the gambling side quest. Okay, first of all, I don't know if you know this, but it wasn't Rose with Finn. Originally, it was Poe. But Rian Johnson was bored with it. He said, literally, I could interchange Poe and Finn's lines, and it didn't matter. It was just like a buddy cop team-up, them trying to do this thing, and it didn't work. So he implanted Rose. Now, Brando, when you're watching the second viewing, and you're in that scene, and you're doing all this scene on the planet and stuff, which the guy that rats him out is Joseph Gordon-Levitt, by the way.
Yeah.
The yak face dude. We forgot to mention that. So,
Mark Hamill also voiced a character on there as well.
I saw that. But here's the thing, man. That is to set up Rian Johnson's new trilogy.
You think so?
Because that little boy at the end who's in the stable with the Jedi powers is the lead-in that is going to spark a new generation of Star Wars stories that Rian Johnson can really build something new and unique and fresh with. And look at what he did with this movie. Give him all the money and all the time, and I bet he makes something that we literally look at and revere like these other original Star Wars movies.
Now, okay, let's also take this into into perspective. Is it fair to compare these movies to the movies of our childhood? It's not fair. It really isn't, because those movies did something for the 70s and 80s that was magical. Those movies were fucking lightning in a bottle. And it is very unfair to say, well, how does Last Jedi compare to Return of the Jedi?
Well, the thing is this, Brando. These movies are okay. I think about it like with all this, the hate and stuff that's going on. I think about everything that's happening, and why would this happen? Why would someone be so fickle about Star Wars? As I said earlier, the not getting their way plays into it. But another thing is that they're just nitpicking because they're Star Wars fans, and they're trying to find a reason to nitpick. I want to read something. Someone, Gus Krieger, posted this on Facebook. I don't personally know Gus, but he wrote this, and I want to just give him some credit. This is his nitpicking of Empire Strikes Back, okay? So
I think I saw this, and it was like, what if that movie were released today, and what would people who are complaining about this movie say about that movie if it were released today?
Gus says this Empire Strikes Back movie doesn't make any sense at all. So they blow up the Death Star, but the Empire is just, like, not affected. They can still show up anywhere and do anything. Glad so many rebel pilots sacrificed themselves in A New Hope, I guess. Plus, I don't think humans can survive in the Arctic overnight with just a coat and some animal intestines. It's called Biology 101. And since when can smugglers use lightsabers? Oh, and I guess now we have ghosts in this universe, too. Ugh. Not to make mention of the insane tiny frog person who apparently is the galaxy's greatest Jedi Master. Give me a break. And while Luke's training, Han and Leia, who have no impact on the overall plot, get captured in like 2 seconds, so when Luke goes to rescue him, he's done his massive grand Jedi training in 48 hours? Makes no sense. And don't even get me started on this I am your father horse shit. The whole entire galaxy and Vader just happened to be passing over his freaking estranged son's home planet when he lost the Death Star plans 1 movie earlier? Shake my head. And oh my god, the ultimate cheap-ass machina when Leia just insinuates they should turn around and go pick up dangling Luke. The franchise has officially jumped the shark, hoping Marquand can turn it around for episode 6, but I'm not holding my breath.
Now,
that's how they sound, Brando.
Yeah. All right, so it was on Saturday night. I received a message from our good old friend Nick Torres.
Okay.
He hasn't been on the show for a long time, but that's mostly due to scheduling and all that kind of stuff. So he sends me this message, and I'm just going to read all these messages because we had a pretty good conversation with it, I feel. He says, Stone, ... I feel like I'm being torn apart. I want to be free of this pain. I know what I have to do, but I don't know if I have the strength to do it. Will you help me?
Quoting Kylo. ...
I didn't like The Last Jedi. And then he says, okay, so then he sends me a screenshot of something that he said to Blaine. And he said, boy, that was rough. Finn's story was rough. The lack of any payoff with Snoke or Rey. The CGI casino. Benicio del Toro. Phasma's still not cool. But hey, at least we got a cool lightsaber scene. And the more artistic destruction of the most artistic destruction of a Star Destroyer fleet ever. In time, it'll probably grow on me, but my issue is with the writing, and I can't forgive that. I like most of the cinematography, action, and acting. He goes, I pretty much told people to ignore the story and look at the pretty scenes and laugh at its jokes and enjoy the characters. And I pretty much told him exactly what I've told you, that the whole side quest thing kind of bothers me, and I feel like they tried to cram too much in with that. Like, I get it, they were trying to establish the relationship between Finn and Rose, and then also with this, have like the little dichotomy with possibly someone betraying them, like in Empire Strikes Back. But he said, yeah, I'm pretty much on the same page. The movie pacing suffered from some unnecessary story arcs. The casino was so bad that at one point I actually thought that track was going to be for pod racing, which I did too. Actually, my first thought was Swoop Bike from KOTOR.
Nice.
And I would say the little boy being a Force user kind of gave it a little payoff for me, but overall, so pointless. I feel like they played around a bit too much with the Force Ghost thing to the point that it almost felt more breaking. And I said, and this is kind of where I stand overall, that my overall absolute final thoughts about this film, probably going to have to wait to see what they do with 9. Number one, it's a trilogy, so there you go. I can tell you what my thoughts are on the film as a whole, but that might change. Like the whole side quest thing might change if they really pay that off in 9, because it would have been established here, even if it was sort of like pacing breaking to me. And I said, I was reflecting back a little today, seeing that so many people don't like The Last Jedi, and thinking, yeah, it's not perfect, but have we ever really gotten that in a Star Wars? I mean, sure, the writing is bad in places, and it has its share, but what if Lucas had directed this? Imagine what this movie would have been like, this script, with George Lucas directing it. I'm like, that whole side quest scene would have been even longer. Imagine 20-somethings in 83 coming off of Empire Strikes Back. And then they're so hyped up. Like, that's the best freaking movie of all time. And here we are. We're going to get the payoff. We're going to get Luke versus Vader. We're going to get another Death Star scene, everything. This whole culmination of this, and the Empire loses to teddy bears.
Yep.
I mean, and then I'm like, and that same movie has one of the best character closings ever, with Vader saving his son, choosing him over the darkness, And he said, true, and I also realized that this movie isn't without merit. I did love certain scenes, and the forced FaceTime calls between Kylo and Rey were some of the best dialogue the franchise has to offer. I think watching Rogue One and Episode 7 beforehand, as well as hearing the earlier reviews saying it was better than Empire, only set this movie up for failure. I do intend to see it again in IMAX here soon, so that maybe that will help my opinion. But as it stands now, he gave me his rundown, his ranking, without even me saying anything. And his last, I'll go from his least favorite to his most favorite.
Sure, please do. I'd love to hear it.
Phantom Menace, Attack of the Clones, Revenge of the Sith, The Last Jedi. That's like so. It's like right above the prequels for him. A New Hope, Return of the Jedi, Rogue One, Force Awakens, and Empire. Interesting
list.
Yeah, of course, we all gave our lists to near the end of the of episode 170. But I wanted to read that because it was like coming from somebody who came open about how he doesn't like it and gave his reasons. It wasn't being necessarily nitpicky, and like the writing at some points is not the greatest. But I guess I'm just like, I see where he's coming from about being maybe too hyped for it, because it was almost like that way for me with Avengers, the first Avengers movie. Everybody I talked to said that movie was freaking awesome. Best superhero movie ever made. And I watch it, and I was so let down by it because of that. If I had watched it without anybody telling me how good it was, and having just had the lead up by myself, it probably would have been very cool. But because of that, it never lived up to what I expected that movie to be. And that might be a problem here, because there were reviews saying this was better than Empire. And that's, to some people, that might be, but that is a hard task to take in when you're dealing with nostalgia. You're going to be combating people's nostalgia at that point. So then they're going to come into this, and if you're just setting this up for failure in that way, you're automatically going to like get people who, well, you said it was this, when there's this, and this, and this, and this wrong with it. Instead of like, if they went into it without the reviews, maybe they would be more kind to some of the flaws. Because every single Star Wars movie has flaws. Every last one of them. Even Empire. Even Empire. Just like you said when that guy read that or made that little review. There are flaws in that story. A New Hope, for Christ's sake. Return of the Jedi. There's flaws in that story. Don't even get me started on the prequel stuff. So like, but is that like Star Wars has always been a group project. This is meant for everybody in the audience, from an older person to a little kid, being mystified, like BB-8 and those little porgs, and some of the comedy stuff. Sometimes that's more kid oriented. That's what draws us in. And then as we get older, we don't remember that as much because we're looking at how great the story was. Meanwhile, as kids, we were like, "Oh, dude, remember the R2 thing when he's on when he shoots the lightsaber out at Luke, or when like they're on the Death Star and R2's like, oh yeah, and he stops his trash compactor, or as a kid, remember when BB-8 was like driving around the AT-ST and all that stuff? That's going to be more like what our generation of kids see that, and they're going to go, "Whoa, that little BB-8 dude's cool," and we're like, "Dude, the Luke stuff, the Kylo Ren stuff." That shit was almost magic in this movie.
Yes.
And so the Last Jedi is a very, very, and Star Wars in general is you have to be patient with it. You're never going to get in a true Star Wars film an artistic masterpiece, because it's so difficult to do that in that. I actually read this. This was a quote. And I'm actually going to use this to segue into another problem that I have that's been going around. But Mark Hamill was talking about, in A New Hope, they just got out of the trash compactor. And they were doing some more scenes after that, right after. And then Mark Hamill realized, hey, shouldn't our hair be wet? We just got out of the water, like it doesn't like make any sense that our hair would like be dry. And Harrison Ford slapped him on the shoulder and said, "It's not that kind of movie, kid."
Huh.
And like, interesting. And this is a young Harrison Ford who hadn't been in a whole lot yet. He wasn't the big Hollywood star that he would go on to be. But here lately, I've been seeing people post stuff saying, what Mark Hamill's true feelings on this movie? And they're splicing together clips from before this movie came out, mixed with little clips that he said after the movie has come out, and they're misrepresenting Mark Hamill and what he's got to say about this. because a lot of his dissatisfaction was coming in. He didn't like his role in The Force Awakens. He didn't like it at all. He's like, no, dude, that's not what I want. Dude, I want to be on screen with, with Harrison and Carrie and Chewie. I want to be on screen with everybody again, have that big moment with all of us. And then, so he was a little salty. But it wasn't until, sitting down and reading the script, people saying he didn't like his role in Episode 8. He didn't until him and Ryan sat down and talked about it. And Ryan presented his case. Mark presented his case. And they worked together to make this character something. Because Mark has an idea in his head how Luke would be. But for the story, Ryan's like, no, he's kind of like this. So I think, and it kind of seems to me that this is the case, they met in the middle somewhere, and they took the creative vision and they went with it and said, well, obviously we don't want to do this if you're going to be so unhappy with it. You're Mark fucking Hamill. You are Luke Skywalker. And Mark said in an interview that I just read that throughout the he said once during the making, he's like, because they're making suggestions. He goes, well, what do the fans want to see? And Ryan's like, no, we can't think about that. We have to think about what we want to see. Don't ever make a movie based on what the fans want to see.
It'll be a shit show.
Well, that's true for any film. No matter how beloved it is by fans at all. You're planting stuff in there that you're certain the fans are going to like. But you have to make this movie for you first. Just like any sort of piece of art. Let's take music. If you're in a band and you get into a big band situation where you're one of the biggest rock bands of all time, your fan base is going to be your most, it's so judgmental. Everything you do is wrong, no matter how good it is. So why bother about that? You worry about what you're doing, release it, and you're going to get people who love it, and you're going to get people who are critical of it. That's not going to stop. So, I mean, that whole thing with them taking interviews with Mark, that's really bugged me, because it's like, I saw somebody shared this and goes, check this out, and I watched it, and they just spliced clips together, and you didn't get a full answer out of any of those clips. And I'm like, this is bullshit.
Yeah. Well, Mark Hamill is a very smart dude, and he sees the longevity of this character. He just became Sir Alec Guinness of this generation, like straight up. When his role ends in that movie, it is so perfect for this universe, and it's everything this universe needs. And it's weird because it's a little bit of hope in a dark moment. And that's another thing the movie preaches is that in the darkest moments, you'll still find hope.
Now, I watched this review of the film, and spoiler alert, guys, Luke dies in this movie. Right? I don't think I expected that going in. Like, seriously, I would have been surprised if Luke made it through. But I liked the way they did it. And it makes sense. And this review was talking about, because you and I said that they, and even Nick was saying the whole Force Ghost thing and projecting yourself was almost kind of overdone. But it was done to a point that established it when you figured it out. It did it enough that when the twist was there, you understood exactly what was happening with him not actually being there. And then we discussed that, well, it was like you were there, but you weren't. But like, because Kylo's hand was wet, or they could feel each other's touch. So the lightsaber must have hurt him. That must have killed Luke. But this guy's theory was he tele'd himself. And I don't know if you understand what that means. I'm sure Sarah would. In Final Fantasy IV, there is a character named Tela. And he's a mage. And he is trying to avenge his daughter, who got killed by Golbez.
Okay.
Or was responsible. I can't remember if it's Golbez killed her or if he was responsible. Anyway, Tela is pulling out all these stops to kill this bastard. Like, the whole party, you're defeated. Well, that dude, he gets back up, and he keeps going. And keeps going. You're like, dude, no, you can't. And he keeps going. He turns his HP into MP.
Whoa.
He turns his life force into his mana and sucks from his life force to try and kill this guy.
Whoa.
And think about it. Luke has been cut off from the Force for so long. He was very powerful in the Force. And think about how strong of a projection it must have been to not only project yourself in that sort of manner where everybody sees you, and you're touching in people to the point of where they can feel your touch. Or does he actually touch anybody?
He kisses Leia on the forehead.
You're right. So there. And then he hands over the dice from the Falcon,
which weren't real.
He manifested the dice. And think about how taxing this must be. He's on a planet remote doing this to find their exact location, key in on that, and force project himself there long enough for them to get away. And it makes more sense now. Once they went, like once he said tell it himself, I'm like, there it is. Okay, I get it. It wasn't like necessarily the lightsaber wounds. He was just so far gone from the Force that took every last inch of energy out of him to do that. And he would every day be willing to do that to help them. And see, the thing is that I actually saw this. I saw a meme where it went through the 4 phases of Luke Skywalker in each movie. Episode 4, hi, I'm Luke Skywalker. I'm here to rescue you, princess. Episode 5, but my friends will die if I don't save them. Episode 6, I have to try and save them. They're still good in him. Episode 7, get off my island. Go away. Get off my lawn. And it's like, somebody was like complaining. It's like, this isn't Luke Skywalker. It's not Luke Skywalker anymore. That's the point.
Exactly.
That like somebody was complaining. He's like, I don't want to see this movie because this is not representing Luke Skywalker. I'm like, he's not anymore. He had to find that part of himself again.
Jake Skywalker.
He had to find Luke Skywalker again. He had to want to go help them again. He was so ashamed of what he had done. Him and Ben, that was the most intense battle of light and dark within Luke Skywalker there ever been, because that was the easy way out.
Yep.
Fear leads to anger. Anger leads to hate. He was afraid of Ben.
Yep.
He was willing to kill his own nephew for just a split second. And that was a temptation of the dark side. And Luke has never been altruistic. He's never been perfect.
He almost went dark in 6.
Yeah, exactly. But he didn't. And then he didn't hear again. But God, that's so powerful. And that's something that this movie just captures. It's like Luke's struggle. He's a Skywalker. I mean, think about the family. Think about his dad. And think of Anakin and how he was so afraid. The fear of losing Padme was enough. Mm-hmm. And then it was the struggle. He wanted. His instincts told him to stop Palpatine. He's a Sith Lord. He's evil. He's bad. We need to stop him. But he can help me. I don't want to lose Padme. It wasn't, I want to save Padme. It was selfish. I don't want to lose her. Him doing it to save her, he thought he was doing it for her. He felt like it. But it was for him.
Mm-hmm.
And almost the same thing for Luke. You just imagine what it would be with the realization of another Vader. How could he stop him? I don't want that. So let's end it. No, I can't. This isn't right. Boom, too late. Then the most perfect thing and the most poetic thing he said, he goes, the last thing I saw were the frightened eyes of a small child. And that was the final push to the dark side for Ben Solo.
If my master could betray me like that.
Exactly. And it's so perfect. It's awesome because then, yes, Luke would go away. He would live in shame. That's his biggest failure. He would isolate himself. No more. I caused all of this damage, all of this, what's going to fall into the galaxy. It's my fault. I failed the Jedi. I failed Ben. I failed Leia. I failed Han. And I have to live with that. So I'll go here. I don't deserve to live anymore. And it's sad and depressing. But then he has his own character arc.
Absolutely.
He has his own character arc in this movie. It's not just he's there. Because Han in episode 7 doesn't really have a big character arc. He's
just trying to get redemption from his son.
He's trying. He's sort of along for the ride, and then gets kind of like wrapped back in with his kid, and we got to stop the resistance. It's almost kind of like the same way with 4, because he doesn't. He's sort of just kind of along for the ride, but then he does have a personal stake in this one. Well, with Luke, it's different. Him training Rey, he's waking himself back up to the Force, and then him admitting the truth to her. His scene with Yoda, he's back to being the student again. I don't know if I said it in the episode, but who did Anakin always listen to even after he wasn't a student?
Yoda.
Well, there's Yoda, but who else? Obi,
yep.
Whenever Obi-Wan said something, Anakin took that as heed. Who did Mace Windu always listen to, even if he disagreed? Yoda,
yep.
And it's like, even though you're not the student anymore. When your master has advice, you heed it, because it's in the teachings. It's sort of like it. It's like you listen to your subordinate or your subordinate. So like even when you've kind of like out of that, so you always respect your elders. And it again, I don't know. I can't remember where we started, but.
We were just, we're riffing on all the stuff that's been going on within this movie. Did you know that Snoke trained one other apprentice?
I did not. It doesn't surprise me. But I don't, again, so did Sidious, or the Emperor. So did Vader. And those were revealed inside comic books and novels, and never came into the main story, which is why I don't know if I don't think it's going to actually come into the main story, because I think this is Kylo's story.
Yeah.
Or, I think this is the story of Kylo Ren, and him killing Snoke in this movie was them, number one, not following the trend of, the master and the apprentice going forward. It's like, now he is it. He is the leader,
the master. Yep. And
what would happen if Vader would have killed Palpatine instead? At that moment, what would be a scene with a Vader in control of the Galactic Empire? It would be a much different story. So that's kind of what we're getting here, and that's kind of exciting because we get to see this young, unfinished, trained Sith-ish. Because I'm not going to call him a straight Sith, because he really isn't. But we get this
trans Sith. That's not bad, right?
I don't know if that's appropriate.
Okay, well, I wasn't trying to be inappropriate. I was just saying, he isn't quite, maybe he's a little still Jedi on the inside.
Well, and
saying.
He has that struggle with the light. He does, and that's the cool thing is that what both movies have done. They've taken that struggle with the light and pushed him even further away from it. So, like in the first movie or in Episode 7, it's the you see his struggles with the light. He admits it to Vader's masks, to his mask, and he's like, "I feel it, the pull to the light." It's a struggle. And then later on with Han, and he knows that to do what he's on his path to do, he has to kill his father, but he doesn't want to.
Yep.
But he does. With, you could say it was Han's help with that. But. And then in this one, it's Rey reaching out to him, and Snoke talking to him the way he is. And then in that moment, he could have made that choice to turn away from this, to go a different path. But he's already been exposed to this darkness. So his natural next habitat, or his next step in this habitat would be right. Instead of taking a left, I go right. Because it's the whole Anakin thing. When Padme confronted Anakin, after being told by Obi-Wan all that he'd done, and she goes, and then when she's saying all the stuff, it's like, oh my God, he wasn't lying. And Anakin's like, what are you talking about, Obi-Wan? What did he say to you? She's like, she's getting upset. He goes, no, you don't get it. I'm doing this for us. We can be together now. Don't worry about, Palpatine. I'm more powerful than he is. I can overthrow him. then it could be me and you together. He's already down. His frame of mind work is already skewed, and he's thinking of, he's not thinking right, man. And then so when you get to Ben, his natural choice is not to go to the good. It's like, let's go over here, because then come with me, because then you and me, we can learn, we can grow together, And then he was trying to reach out to her and turn her like she was to him, and I almost sounded like Kermit the Frog there.
Well, he was trying to turn her like she was to him, and he put his hands out and was like, who are your parents? And she's like, nobody. He's like, yeah, they were nobody, but you're not nobody to me.
And she's like, oh, Kylo. For some reason, Miss Piggy's Ren or Ray in this. Ren or Ray. Come on now.
Yeah, it's too perfect.
But it's that same thing there. It's the light in the dark pull.
Ooh, weird. Ray is a Y. Ren is an N.
Yes and no.
Or no.
Yeah.
That's interesting. Ugh.
Now, Tyler, he was on our episode. He went and saw it the next day with his uncle.
Ooh, yeah?
And when they got to the casino scene, and it's funny, but his uncle nudged him and said, Lando.
Oh. That would have been awesome. Wasn't that the plan, though? Didn't Rian Johnson say that?
No, well, he had thought about it, but then he was thinking about the story as a whole and how this character that they meet there, this Codebreaker, was supposed to betray them. And he didn't want the nostalgia factor. Oh, here's Lando. Awesome. Because he sort of transcended the villain role.
And then, of course, betray him.
And then have him do that again. Because it wouldn't make sense. Because Leia is a friend. Chewie's a friend. Han was a friend. In Empire, he didn't betray them because he was evil. He betrayed them because he was thinking about the people of Cloud City.
Yeah, he had no choice. His hands were tied.
Exactly. Vader and the Empire were already there. He didn't really have much of a choice. So, I mean, it is what it was. And then afterwards, he tried to do his best to make up for it. And obviously, they didn't trust him at first. But then, by the end of the whole thing, he was one of the key generals in the attack against the Death Star. So he played a big role in that. So yes, it would have been cool. But the only way to play that would be is if they got caught and he didn't betray them. And so then they had to make their way out with him. And so he would have been with Finn and Rose when they got back to the Salt Planet.
See, I think they could have used Lando and made a little of a comedy moment out of Canto Bright, because what you could have done was had Lando gambling at the casino and Finn beelines it like, are you my father? Like it's a callback to Empire. Are you my father? And he's like, no, kid. We don't even look alike, And like
have him be like, I ain't got no kids that I'm aware of.
Exactly.
Have him even go, I don't think so. Have him even kind of question himself. That would have been funny. But see, then of course, it would have been cool to have another scene of him being there to help out his old friends and coming back in to help Leia. And then there's the Falcon, his old ship with Chewie and all that kind of stuff. So maybe episode 9. I'm hoping so, because I think we deserve a Lando cameo at best.
Yeah. Well, if they're going to do any kind of a funeral scene or any memorialization of Leia, that would be the place to put it.
With her being gone and them still needing a sort of path to the past for the Resistance, having because they killed Akbar.
Yep.
So they're being because you can actually, at this point, you don't need it. 2 movies in, you could actually just put in a new character being in the lead and just roll with it. Nobody would even question it. But if you want that and that little hint of nostalgia, the only other character that's still around that would be a big nostalgia leader role would be Lando. And how cool would it be to have Lando be the guy now who's in charge of the Resistance? Because maybe when they said that nobody's responding, maybe he was on his way. Maybe he was an ally. Maybe he's somewhere else and he's got some people. And they meet in the middle somewhere, and it's like, hey, that's my ship. He's like, Chewie, you sorry old son of a gun. What? See, you replaced that dish up there. Oh man, this ship got me through a lot of hard times. Like, what can I help you with? And it's like, things are bad. All right. Oh, geez, come on in. Let's have a drink and talk about it. And then that could be that is so badly written. That's like worse written than anything that's in The Last Jedi.
I thought you were going to have him step onto the Falcon and remark on the porgs.
My, what do we have here? It's in the wires and everything. Try to eat one? How much meat's even on these things? I like that they didn't use the porgs, like overuse them or make them too much of a point. They're just kind of there.
Yeah, they served a great purpose because there are native birds on that island called puffins. And they look kind of like porgs, so they just made porgs so that in the long shots, if you saw birds flying around, they weren't just birds from Earth. They were outer space birds. Let's shift gears here a little bit, Brando, because I think we've got another... It's funny, we're shifting from Episode 8 to Season 8, Episode 8 of Season 8. The Walking Dead mid-season finale happened last week, 2 weeks ago, by the point this is out. So I watched it. I want to get your thoughts before I say anything.
I didn't hate it at all.
Okay.
I think I've had enough time to sit on it, and I got spoiled before the episode actually, like before I saw it. I don't like what they did, doing that to Carl off screen like that. Granted, they haven't really given me a reason to care for about a season and a half about this character. They haven't done a whole lot with him, and so it's important to Rick, of course, and to Michonne at this point, that this character be gone. But for me as a fan, it's like I don't feel anything. I just feel like, oh, okay, this is going to be important. Now, I have actually theorized that, in the comics, we got to that big death with Andrea just recently, and it seems like they're doing more of a crisscross. They're not doing a straight adaptation. They're putting a little bit of this from this and a little bit of this from the book here now. So we got that whole scene that was Negan and Rick in the house. We got that with Father Gabriel and Negan in that trailer. And so we're getting a little bit of a different kind of all-out war here. And what spoiled me about Carl's death, because I was staying away from spoilers, and it was the picture of Carl on IGN. And it says, and it was Walking Dead character's father speaks out about the actor's exit. And I'm like, so they did something with Carl? I'm like, so I read it, and the dude was like, yeah, me and my son, we trusted Scott Gimple. He said he wanted him around for 3 more years, and he lied to him, and he told him at the last minute, and he sat down with him and let him go. And then he deleted the whole post. And I have a couple theories as to why they did it.
Sure, let's hear him. I would love to hear him.
Number one, they didn't want to CGI his eye.
Okay.
Which my fix would be put a damn eye patch on him.
Put the governor.
That's the whole point. A little like wink, nudge, nudge.
You can't wink with one eye. It's just blinking.
I'm looking to see who wrote this episode.
I'm hopeful that this decision doesn't stick.
Well, I mean, either that Walker had dentures, or it was a whisperer, like I had said to you off the air.
I love that concept.
But having this character go, it makes you wonder where they're gonna ultimately go, because it is a big twist. It's not really like the way that I would kill the character off, and that's fine. But for us as fans, even of the books, it's like Carl's sort of been like The apprentice. He's like the guy that's going to take charge if Rick ever goes or Maggie ever goes. Who's the next big leader? Well, it's Carl, because people are going to look up to him. And he kind of did that here in this episode. He stood up and he took charge, and people listened to him. But then it ends for him, and it's ending for him. And I really liked that he was down when they were all down in the sewers. He was with his sister. He was hugging her. Spending time with her before he goes.
Yep.
And I don't think it's going to be the end of me watching the series. It is a questionable decision, to say the least. I don't think it's that bad because, as I said, they really haven't made me care about the character anyway. So what was their plans for him? Obviously, he's going to be going to college. So as an actor, as a person, the kid playing Carl, I can't remember his name, I'm sorry.
Chandler Riggs.
Chandler Riggs, there you go. Always on the money, Nate.
Trying to be.
Because I guess he was really going to put it off while he was still working on the show. Now he didn't have to. He can just go to college and work on other stuff, because he had said that, he goes, while it took me by surprise, this does free me up to do other stuff, because I'm not limited to just The Walking Dead anymore. And it's got pluses and negatives. Where do you take it? For me, the overall scene or the overall act of doing it off screen. Because we're in season 8. Do you really need to see someone get bit to explain what it means? No, but it does kind of lose a little bit of impact. But it also leads to him doing everything that he's doing. Kill me. The whole dialogue with Negan was awesome.
Yeah.
Him kind of calling Negan out because he's no longer afraid to die because he knows he's dead. Yeah. He doesn't want to die, but he knows he's going to die. So if you're going to do it, go ahead and do it, because I'm dead anyway, pal.
That's why he wrote the letter.
Yeah.
Which, that'll be something for the mid-season premiere.
And then think about where Rick is, having lost Carl, still having to face Negan, and get to a point where he doesn't kill Negan. Because, what would make me stop watching the show is if they killed Negan.
I agree with that, too.
So, if they get to the point where they kill Negan, that's like what are you doing at that point? Because where they've taken him in the books, he's like the most important or second most important character to me in the books, like next to Rick.
I agree.
So if you kill him off at the end of All Out War, then to me that's just a shame, and I wouldn't really know. It's like he has so much more development to be had. Same with Carl.
I'm so upset. Yeah, that's why I'm so upset with Carl.
Same with Carl, but really they haven't. What real development other than a few things here and there have they done? They did the whole thing with him and with the thing where he lost his eye, and then they did the whole thing with him and Negan, then him and that one girl, Enid.
Weird ass name.
And then from there, it's like, he's there. In this season, he's had 2 scenes prior to this last episode.
One was a weird flash forward.
Well, yes. And I guess he wasn't even, from what I hear, because I don't remember it that well, but it said that you only heard him in the background, you didn't actually see him.
Really? I'm certain that Rick walked by him. Weird. Need to go back and watch that.
Maybe that walker does have false teeth.
Possible. There's a lot of different things, Brando. I thought about it. I said this to you. It's like, what if this is maybe a Carl plan that is trying to trick Negan into thinking Carl's off the board? So now you have somebody who has been freed up, and what if Carl is going to be the one that non-kills Negan? They think he's dead. They think he's off the board. All this great sadness has happened. Rick is at his...
Are you telling me that he made Siddiq bite him?
Maybe, yes. Actually. He's like, listen, man, this is going to sound fucking strange, but I need you to take a bite out of me and be for real, and mean it. Siddiq's
but then the whole pale skin, the sweating, it's sort of telltale.
you're right. He does have the symptoms. He could also just have the flu. I mean, I'm hopeful because I feel like this is a terrible decision. I feel like the gold, the actual pure gold of The Walking Dead has just been snuffed out in TV show form. Because the gold that I was waiting on, the thing that had me stoked to get through All Out War, was Negan sitting in a jail cell, Carl on the other side of that cell, and him being mentored by Negan. And what does that mean? You know, there's interesting character development in that, and what it means for Carl to go down that path.
Maybe it won't be Carl then.
Yeah, but I don't like that. Who is going to benefit? Is it going to be fucking Daryl? That doesn't make sense. Like they've just taken things that could make sense and taken them off the board. It's weird. I heard that AMC is in a lawsuit right now with Robert Kirkman. Did you know that?
Yes. Yes, I did know that, and that was well before the season was started airing, because it's a very similar lawsuit that had to do with Frank Darabont.
Yeah, the guy who directed the first episode.
Well, he also developed the series for air. Like, he pitched this to networks and whatnot.
Oh.
And then he got snuffed out. And it was over royalty fees, and they feel like they deserved more money, essentially. It's like, we need more money out of this, a higher percentage than what you were supposed to be paying. I don't know the fine details. I'd have to look up the article, but I remember reading that a while back.
Yeah, it's weird. I don't know. It's weird because it's like, is this a power play by somebody? Like, here, this is the decision we're making because we're in this legal battle with the guy that created this series, you know? I don't understand, man. This is something that affects me as a watcher because I'm a big comic fan. And they've done a really good job of doing things one way or the other willy-nilly, mixing some stuff up. But I think they've just made some poor choices here. I felt like this all-out war storyline was doing really good in Season 8. It was building towards something special. And then I think out of nowhere, it just it got the fucking wind sucked out of it, you know? It's like this possible Carl death, if this sticks, I don't think it looks good for the show either, you know? Now all you've got left is what? Rick, Daryl, and Carol? The big three, the remaining three? What is this, Orange Barrels with Rick, Daryl, and Carol?
There goes Rick, Carol, and Daryl standing next to the orange barrel, pissing off my wife named Meryl, who's looking back at me.
Yeah, you know what's up. That's some Bob and Tom from Bob and Tom show.
Man, that's a long time ago right there.
That's maybe where my love for radio started.
Yeah,
listening
same.
to those old clips and stuff. You don't really reflect on that until you're kind of in this moment. And I was just like, wow. They were really clever, Bob and Tom.
Yeah, you know, Bob, man, he's all retired now.
Yeah.
And he actually came back a few weeks ago.
Really?
And, Tom was off on a day because his daughter was having brain surgery. She has a tumor, or had a tumor.
Terrifying.
And he was gone, and Bob came in to fill in for him.
That's kind of awesome. Hey, we got the special guest fill in. He's only the legendary Bob from Bob and Tom.
Yeah, he's like the damn namesake of the show.
It's weird not to have Bob and Tom on the Bob and Tom show. Doesn't make
fucking
but,
sense. He's old, man. He's been doing it forever. He's still smoking like a chimney, I'm sure.
Oh God, yeah. Man, I don't know. The future of The Walking Dead, just to get back to it, is definitely in flux. I'm happy with the comics. We talked about 174, 175 right around the corner here on the new year. This is our go-home show before the new year. This is the last one for us for 2017, Brando. I think we had a really successful 2017. We launched a network. We've launched some shows.
Oh, man. Nick Maxon just posted to the Nerds of the Roundtable Facebook group, not affiliated with our Nerds of the Roundtable podcast, but it's called Choose Your Own Adventure, Star Wars Episode 9, The Blank of the Blank. And it has, like, you know, this here, and it says, quote, no childhood ruin guarantee. Choose from over 4,276,347 endings. By not Ryan Johnson, not J.J. Abrams, only the greatest Star Wars expert, you.
It's dead on. So back to what I was saying. I was getting sappy, damn it.
I'm sorry, dude. I saw that, and it just totally derailed me. I'm like, we have to add that on. That's great.
This is our last show of 2017, Brando.
It is, man. We've had a great run for this year. You know, we came in pretty strong, and we had the whole LaFiCon bit where we got to host panels on a con, not just do a live show. And we're all set to be doing that again this year.
That's awesome too.
That would be great. You know, we've launched the network. It was a scary thing because we jumped in before we even really knew what we were doing.
Now we have 10 shows.
Yeah, now we have some 10 shows, and we've gotten all of our friends into it, and we launched a Patreon. We're doing exclusive content over there, and then we're well on our way to doing episode 200 this summer. So it's gonna be great.
Now, a couple things also to note for 2017. Well, into 2018. 2017, Brando, I just recently was interviewed for Podcasting Smarter. It's Podbean's official podcast. They are podcast.podbean.com. That's how official they are. They're just podcast. Okay? But Jennifer over there interviewed me. You can check it out, Podcasting Smarter. It's on, like I said, on Podbean, iTunes, and stuff like that.
It was a great interview.
Thanks, man. I really appreciate it. It was a lot of fun to be over on that show, and she had some interesting questions for me, and I didn't feel too on the spot, but it was nice to be on the other side of the table being interviewed instead of being the interviewer, as it were.
I thought it was a really cool episode, and you really represented the whole network, really well. And it was also really cool that she had already checked out literature.
Yeah,
and didn't even make the connection that it was through us right off the bat. She had just found it independently, and because she's a big book nerd. So I thought that was really cool.
Yeah, it was super exciting. From that though leads in the reason I'm talking about this, because the next time you're going to hear us, folks, and this is very important. We want everyone to tune in, share the hell out of next week's episode. Talk about it, get in touch with us, because the next time you hear us, which will be 2018, it will actually be New Year's Day 2018. And Brando, we are bringing something really cool to the thing. We're bringing back Nerds of the Round Table discussion. This will be the third one, and it's going to be a part of the Journey into Comics feature week on the Podbean site. One of the 2 weeks that were actually featured, because as the 9 shows that are on the .com for Journey into Comics go, getting the first week of January, the very following week of January, Brando, Game Addicts Podcast gets their own feature for a week. That's super awesome.
#blessed.
Hell yeah, we are, man. So it's like a nice little kickoff to 2018, and some more visibility for us. Really grateful for everything Podbean does. I don't really have anything else to add today, Brando. Do you?
Not really, man. It's been a great couple of weeks, a couple of shows here from us here on across all shows here on the network. I really can't wait for feature week. We're all going to be bringing our A game. We got a lot of cool things planned for a lot of the different shows that are going to be going live that week, and I really cannot wait to hear what some of these shows have to offer. For the whole week. So it's going to be really neat to, since I'm not 100% involved with every show, to be able to hear what they bring to the table as well.
And what their ideas are for the week. I know there's some really funny special things going on. Foodies is trying to plan some stuff, looking at the Oscars and whatnot. So it's a really groovy time, in the network. But if that's going to do it for this week of Journey into Comics, as always, folks, get us on all the different podcasting platforms, whether it's Podbean, iTunes, Stitcher Radio, Google Play Music. We are now on Spotify. I'll say it again here, Spotify. We don't see your plays, though, from Spotify, which is kind of bizarre. They're still trying to figure all that out. So keep listening on Spotify, and we will hopefully see that you are doing that sooner rather than later. Folks, get us on all the different social media sites, whether it's on Facebook at Journey into Comics Podcast, Instagram also at Journey into Comics, and on the Twitter at JIC Network. Give us a 5-star review on iTunes. We're at 30 reviews now, so that's pretty cool. We just got another one today, I think, which is pretty great. Brando, thanks so much for joining me on this festive, no snow on the ground Christmas episode of Journey into Comics. It's always great to discuss things with you, and it's a Star Wars season, my friend.
Always. It seems it's going to be that way kind of going forward with Episode 9 here in a few years.
Yeah, and then whatever comes after that. Will we get an Episode 10? Who knows?
Well, if we do, hopefully, from what I'm hearing, Daisy Ridley's already said she's done after Episode 9. She's out.
Until 30 years later when she reprises her role as an old Rey.
An old Rey.
Force Ghost Rey.
Who probably has gone a little gray.
You got some wrinkles, Gray Rey.
Now, is the Han Solo film coming out in May, or did that get pushed back?
It's May 25th of 2018. It's weird, but that's where they have it. So
it makes you wonder how much Ron Howard was able to do with this film, you know?
I think quite a bit. I feel like he's such an extraordinary filmmaker that he can take a pile of shit and make gold out of it, you know? Just like, so. This is what we have to work with. Okay, well, I know Han Solo. I like that. Have you ever seen Apollo 13? Yeah, I directed that shit, motherfucker. Let's go. Right?
So Ron Howard was also in American Graffiti.
Yeah. Oh, that's interesting.
Who was
directed by George Lucas.
That also had Harrison Ford in it.
Weird. That is super weird. I never even put that all together. Huh. Interesting. Super interesting. All right, folks. Well, that's going to do it for this week of the Journey into Comics podcast. I have been your host, Nate. Brando, thank you so much for joining me.
Always.
All right. So, for the JIC podcast, I'm Nate.
I'm Brando.
And we'll see you guys later. Have a great, fantastic Christmas, and fill your heads with Christmassy shit.